Music theory. Is it a necessity or an option? Is it just as simple as it sounds, or is there more to it than meets the ear? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, and welcome to Streaming with Keegan. This is another discussion stream, and I have with me right now Abstractius Artemis, Department of Industrial Accidents, Alex, otherwise known as IMLXH, and myself, of course. And today, this is a discussion stream that was kind of inspired, I will admit, off of an argument I had on Twitter, like most things. And it's extremely more, it's a lot more of a, I guess, controversial topic, or at least hot button issue than I originally thought it would be. And it's whether or not you need music theory to be a musician. That's probably the easiest question to get out of the way. You don't, but I feel like there's some more nuance to be had, because it's a very nuanced discussion. But yeah, Abstract, do you have anything to say? Or same with Department of Industrial Accidents, Alex. I
just want to say that you can call me Paul. That's my actual name.
Gotcha, Paul. Gotcha. Yeah.
It's a little easier to say than my entire project name, so everybody can call me Paul. That's the name I was born with. So just
great.
Just cool. Establishing that.
All right, and don't call me by my birth name, because I don't want you to, and I don't really care for it. Anyway.
All right.
So, yeah, I think.
I mean, the way I started this was, like I said, I got into an argument on Twitter, and then Paul reached out to me, and we wanted to have a discussion about it. And then I was like, you know what, let's turn it into a whole ass stream, because I feel like you just in our conversation alone on Twitter, because like if you want to hear about the whole history, basically I shared with in a group chat with Abstract and Love You the exchange I had with this Twitter user, and then Abstract kind of used that to make tweets about music theory and asked a few questions, and his Twitter responses were also rather pulverized as well, including somebody calling him a word I will not repeat on this stream. Yeah, in general, I feel like I have a lot to say on the matter, because I am a musician who doesn't know any music theory, or at least I was never taught professionally. Like, I was never taught music theory. I'm sure I picked up on some of it over time, but it's always been intuitive to me. And the crux of the argument I had with this person was whether or not learning music theory would be overall beneficial. I think it would be, but at the same time, I also feel like it depends on your priorities and what you want to do with your music, and how naturally gifted you are at understanding things intuitively. But I'm not going to say I know everything there is to know about, music theory intuitively, because that would be arrogant of me to assume, because I don't know music theory. But yeah, all that is to say, I guess that's all I have to say for now.
If everybody doesn't mind, I'd like to jump in.
Sure.
So I'll just give a quick background. I've talked about this before. I am a music teacher, like an actual music teacher. I taught music for a long time. I also went to music school. I almost completed a degree in music, but I was just succinctly, I was severely depressed and on a lot of drugs at that time, so that really got in the way of me actually finishing. So I'm neither of those now. So things are going a lot better. But at that point in my life, I was going through some personal stuff that got in the way of that. But I never stopped like learning about music because, so in my experience, nobody starts off their musical journey wanting to know music theory. That's not what attracts you to music.
Right.
You get into it, like me, the way my brain works, and I think, Keegan, you picked up on this. I have a very curious brain, and I want to delve into a lot of things. So once I found out that there was this body of knowledge that organized sound, I wanted to learn about it. And I got really into it for a long time, and I'm still into it, but there's nothing like when you're new to something and you're really immersed in it for the first time, like that, like total, like everything is brand new that you're learning. And, so that period of time in my life was probably the most intense I've ever approached it. So my opinion is, well, first of all, there's no such thing as knowing all the theory. All right. Because you really, one of the best definitions of music theory I've ever come across is the study of how notes fit together. Right. So you look at different cultures, they have a different way of organizing notes. So if they have a theoretical approach to that, it's going to be very different. Mm-hmm. So there's not actually like in England, they don't refer to math as math, they call it math, right? Because there's different subdisciplines of mathematics. So similarly in theory, there's so many different subdisciplines. There's no way that one person is going to know everything about music that there is to know. I mean, because not only theory, that look at the production side. Production isn't normally considered a part of theory, and of course, that's my journey right now. Like somebody can go to school in music, study music theory, and they can nothing about compression and limiting and equalization and all that stuff. That's a whole other side. There's people here that know way less theory than me, but that can produce music in circles around me. So
if I could, sorry, go on. I wanted to say one little thing about that. Because that is a great example you brought up, because I haven't felt the need to learn music theory. I'm the kind of person, I have a curious brain, but at the same time, oh god, I can hear myself through somebody's system.
That might be me.
Oh yeah, I have you muted on the screen.
Okay, anyway, but yeah, the way I learn things is, I have to get really, really interested in something in order for me to, retain the information. It's actively challenging for me to retain information that I'm not 100% interested in, and it's not fed to me in the right way. So, for me, I try to use my time very wisely, and I try to learn things that I need to learn to advance my very specific goal in whatever thing I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to expand upon that, but it is difficult for me. Just how my brain is wired, I guess. But that being said, it's cool. I like that you pointed out how mixing and mastering is different from, learning how notes fit together in music theory, because that's definitely has definitely been my experience, because I've always kinda sorta had an intuitive understanding of what notes sound together and what notes don't. But that could not be said at all for my sense in music mixing and mastering. I didn't know jack shit about that, and as a result, my initial songs made musical sense, but they sounded awful, the mix was awful. And so I had to learn mixing and mastering the hard way. And as a result, I know a lot more technical jargon when it comes to the mixing and mastering process, because I had to learn how to do that with, I guess, my left brain. With graphs and theory.
Yeah, I think with music theory versus audio engineering, they could go hand in hand. If you want to be all around composer, producer, all of that, but audio engineering an audio engineer doesn't necessarily need to know a damn thing about music, just how to make it sound good.
Yeah, I
They
mean
don't have to know.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
they
Hey,
don't have
Ordian
to know
Desurium, welcome.
notes. And hey, Pooh, welcome, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, I didn't see them. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
it comes down like with me, I learn music. I don't know music theory per se, but I do know some music theory. I'm not proficient enough to teach you music theory, but I can
Right.
teach you how to make a beat.
Right.
Like with these guitars, I'm teaching myself to do this, and it does involve trying to learn music theory as I go along. And I think it is important to know some music theory, and you might know it and not even realize. I mean, you can listen to notes, you Keegan, not me.
Right.
You can listen to a song and you can know, okay, that sounds like that note, and that note sounds like it goes good with that note, and then that's music theory.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
what I
but
mean
it's
when
just
I
a
say
different, yeah.
exactly.
It's just a different practice. It's not your traditional open a book and read how to do it and read notes and bars and tabs and all that stuff. That stuff all gets a little complicated.
Yeah, it's like right brain intuition.
Yeah, it's like when I see music notes written on paper, it throws me off. Like for piano, it throws me off. I don't know where to start. But I can when I'm practicing my bass, I need to look at bass tabs, which is basically music notes. I need to look at that to know like where I'm playing and what I'm doing. And
Right.
same with like when I'm making a beat and I'm using my keyboard to write a melody, I need to look at something that is that represents what notes I can push together, so I know what I'm gonna be in. And I always keep up, like if I'm doing a song in G minor or something, I always have the G minor chords that go good together, or the chords for G minor. That way I know like I'm not going to be playing out of key. I always have it up like on a separate screen, so I can look at it. And I think that a lot of music theorists that are
starting out,
like
or
some of these, the people who say, the people who are like, oh, you need music theory to make music. They've went to school and that's how they learned, and so they were taught that that's what you need to make music.
Exactly.
I know a lot of people who don't know anything. They don't know anything about it. They just make music.
Yeah.
They just know by ear.
Yeah, like the way we had that conversation on Twitter, definitely it sounded a lot like the same argument, like, oh, you won't amount to anything if you don't go to college type of thing, you know?
Is that the chats that you shared with me with that guy? Is like, producers that don't do music theory are like a bunch of morons running around on the beach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
let me send in this little example thing where this guy, this is like a separate, this is not the tweet I engaged with, but this is a similar tweet, and what's the word, grayed out or blued out in this case the name and the profile pic and any identifying information, because I just want to pick apart this argument real quick, or just like this statement.
So the thing that got me interested in wanting to have a discussion is that the thing that's been bothering me as someone that has a background in teaching music and knows how hard it is to get people like proficient, like it's a real process getting somebody on board with learning how to play an instrument. There's a real art to teaching. You can know all the information, like Mozart, right? One of the greatest geniuses of all time was composing operas at the age of 8. He couldn't teach to save his life because he was so gifted that he couldn't translate it out into like actually a systematic way to help people. So
right.
The problem, why I want to get involved with this is what I don't like that I'm seeing is this very condescending, like thou shalt kind of like attitude coming. But also the other side of it is if these people are so concerned, why are they not providing any resources? You know what I mean? And that's something I think I talked to you about it, Keegan, but I'm actually planning to put together some like fundamental theory stuff and put it on my website. Awesome. I don't want it to get in the way of my like music production, so I got to figure out a way to fit that in with working full time, raising kids, and trying to actually get some sleep here and there. Like I still have to sleep somewhat, but I just want to try and put something together that kind of gives people basic grounding that are looking for it. And I have a lot of experience in that. You know, I can put together a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna start.
Hey, what's up, Foxen?
Putting together something to put it out there and promoting that because I just feel like if people are going to complain and another thing is if somebody is making music and doesn't know any of that stuff, why are you that upset about it? Like if people who are naturally musical and know how to put music together are going to succeed and people who aren't going to. And you can teach them all the theory in the world. But if you're not a naturally musical person, it doesn't matter if you know all the chord progressions in a particular key. You're not going to actually have any idea of how to do it because you don't have any musical ability. Musical ability should always precede everything else. Like, for instance, you, Keegan, I was on a chat where, was it that the magical musical or the miracle musical?
Miracle musical.
Yeah, and you were using your speech synthesizer and something else in FL Studio to basically reconstruct entire songs, and you were doing it completely by ear. Yeah. So actually, what I would say is that you intuitively, and you too, Abstract, based on the things I've heard, you guys actually have a lot of theoretical concepts that you've gleaned from listening to music. What theory does is it gives you a vocabulary and like a lexicon. So, that's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
That's a major chord. That's a minor chord. So that when you hear these things, you're able to like intellectually comprehend them. Right. Whereas somebody who doesn't know theory isn't going to know the language. But when it comes down to it, it's just a certain body of knowledge that helps you organize what you're hearing and gives you the ability to communicate. The other thing is that if you look at the history of Western Europe, for instance, where if you think about it, all of our Western theory basically came out of the classical tradition. You can hate classical music or love it, but all of it was basically codified from the time of church music on up. If you look at medieval music, for instance, like what was being composed in like the 12 to 1400s, the way theoreticians and composers approached their musical organization was very different from the way Baroque composers did. So that's another thing. When people say music theory, it's not some set in stone thing. Yeah, we have certain things that are going to be fundamental.
It's like based it's like based in Western and European traditions, right?
Right, and because really the theoreticians were coming along after the composers wrote their music, and they were going, okay, so this composer is doing these things. We notice that these relationships are happening. It would be like if I took Timbaland and Jay Dilla and like DJ Premier, and I listened to all of their hip hop production, and I derived a set of laws of hip hop production based on the music. And then I wrote a book about it. Yeah, that's what's really. That's the thing that a lot of these people confuse is that theory doesn't precede the practice of music. The practice of music actually precedes the theory. All of the theory that's being formulated comes along after the fact of the music's being formed. So
I've heard of people saying like, I took a music theory class and my music got worse. It's like predictable now that I have to write it according to a set of rules, and that's like. Music theory classes like the AP music theory class that I took in high school, that is only like a small sliver of what music theory is. And it's not, and it's taught in a weird prescriptivist sense, like you can never use parallel fifths. Tell that to everybody uses parallel fifths. It's the year 2024 and nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah, and I just slam my fingers on the keys and just hope for something.
The only time that kind of thing, because I'm taking composition lessons. My my composition teacher, he goes by the Classical Nerd on YouTube. He's really great, really awesome guy. I found his Patreon. He was
I love his channel. I'm a fan. I think I'm subscribed. Yeah.
He actually has a video about the use of parallel fifths and octaves. And there's stylistic things, like if I'm writing music in the style of J.S. Bach, or I'm emulating high classical style like Mozart or Haydn, you're going to avoid that stuff because it's not what they did stylistically.
You don't know
But
what
if I'm writing
parallel
like,
are, Orion.
if you're writing like heavy metal and you have a bunch of power chords, that's just a string of parallel fifths and octaves. It's contextually, it works in that music because, so this is, and you're Polymer, you're totally right. This is the thing that you have to that people have to understand, is that you absorb the rules. So during the time that you're absorbing the rules, your music probably is going to get worse because you're coming out of your intuition and you're learning to think more directly. But there's no major composer that did things by the rule book. They absorbed the rules and then they assimilated that understanding into their artistic imagination, and they did something beyond that. You know, there's a lot of music that breaks the rules that's made by musicians that are considered to be like major thinkers in the musical traditions they work in. So
if I might add one small thing, I wanted to get this in, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. But basically, I wanted to if we were like fast forward back to what you were saying about learning music theory, because music theory is kind of like this you know, it's like a book that you're writing to when you're observing different
hip-hop producers
properties of like how music works and how we enjoy and how music is created based on observing musicians existing in the world. What I wanted to say there is, like, to the extent I'm able to predict what I think will happen when I learn music theory, is I think I'll be better at playing instruments. That's one thing. But I also feel like I might get some new ideas now that I have the knowledge available to me. Like, I could look and be like, hey, I could try that. Or, ooh, I could try that. It's something I never considered intuitively because I didn't have anything in my left brain to go off of. That's something I feel like music theory is good for, but I also, at the same time, I reject what this tweet's saying, that if you don't learn music theory right now, then you're not putting in the work or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, I don't mess with that condescending bullshit, and I don't think that's an appropriate way to teach someone, but yeah, I feel like that would be the benefit. And I do plan on learning music theory in my own time when I learn to play the piano, because I have a Novation keyboard and I feel like I don't use it nearly as much as I should, and I want to learn how to play it.
I feel like people like that who they want to criticize, but they don't want to help bring you up. They don't want to give you the the tools necessary to help you progress along in your journey. They want to just hate on you and say that you're trash. Same with some YouTubers who do live streams to listen to music, and then you throw your song on, and instead of being like, yo man, you could do this and this to fix it, they're like, this is garbage, this is trash, get out of here, quit making music, don't ever do it, don't share your shit ever again.
And like this guy, this particular person, I'm not gonna share any identifying information, but this person is a teacher. I know this because that's in their bio, and we talked about this in group DMs. This person does teach music theory and mixing and mastering, but I don't know, this kind of language he spews on Twitter just seems to be detrimental.
It feels like, it kind of feels like he's trying to guilt people into purchasing his courses.
That's always a good way to do it.
Yeah, that might be what it is, honestly.
I mean, you know, negative attention is attention, and it's profitable in the age of social media. That's why shit is the way it is.
Exactly. I just feel like antagonizing people is not the right way to go. I felt like I'm not gonna determine whether I learn music theory is not gonna be determined by some asshole on Twitter, but in that moment I was like, fuck you. Now you make me not want to learn music theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to spite you.
Yeah. And when it comes to actually sitting down and learning it, because I have taken a few online courses for music theory because I wanted to make sure Only reason is because I wanted to make sure I'm playing my music in the right key. That's the only reason. I learned the basics. I learned how to find the key. I learned minor and major scales, and that's as far as I went. I didn't go any further than that. It's a lot of tedious, boring stuff that is really hard for most people, especially people who have an abstract look on art like myself. It's hard for you to sit there and go through a whole course of theory and try to learn notes and try to learn how to read it. Reading music is one of the harder things to do for me, but my daughter, she can look at music notes and play something on the piano or on her ukulele. I can't do that. So
Right.
some people look at art in an abstract way. And I mean, hence the name. I mean, my art is abstract. I mean, the thing that's the least abstract is my logo. That's like the least abstract thing I've ever made.
Yeah,
Besides,
we're in here big braining King Brown Cow.
Yeah, I mean, I do like to draw, and I've drew like realistic things like cars and animals and humans and all that. But I always turn all that stuff into abstract stuff. Like I'll use that in my next abstract piece. Same with music. Like some of the stuff that I never release, I just go in there and I just kind of make some crazy stuff, and I won't even necessarily like it. So I won't ever release it or show it to anybody.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of musicians out there like me, like you, Keegan, who we're self-taught. Like we didn't go to school. We're self-taught, and it's kind of like a baker. There's school, like culinary school, and people go to that school to learn how to bake. But then there's people like me who just get some flour, some sugar, and some other ingredients, throw it in a bowl, and
hope for the best.
Figure out what's going to happen. And
trial and error, yeah.
I mean, yes, I say that because I have baked just random things and come up with some pretty good stuff to eat.
Yeah.
Same with my music. It's like I'm baking a new pie without a recipe when I'm making a new song. It's like, some people need that formula. They need that recipe too, and that's where this music theory, needing to know music theory versus not needing to know it, comes into play. Some people need a recipe to go off of. Some people need
Lindemann.
the instructions how to do something. And then there's other people who just think outside of the box and just do their thing.
I would actually say there's another category and that kind of gets to my other point. Like there's nobody that is considered like in that realm of quote unquote like learned music that just stuck to the formula. Because what happens is you absorb the underlying rules, whatever they may be, but then you learn how to go beyond what those rules are, but you have a sort of platform for helping you understand what's going on with your own artistic process. So like nobody that's like a major composer in the Western tradition, they all did things that were completely outside of what the conventions were. It's often the academics actually that make it incredibly difficult. It's the people that are like academic musicians are a lot like critics. There's the guy that wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. What the hell was his name? There's this like lounge musician, and he said music critics are like people that sit on a hill watching a war, and when it's over, they shoot the survivors. And I kind of feel that way about like some music teachers. Like, see, like my whole approach as a teacher is kind of like what drives music. I want to know how this stuff works, but I want to use it to like get my own thing out into the world. I don't want to like if I decide to use a cliche chord progression as it's taught in the books, because it fits into the music that I'm trying to express at that time. That said, I do appreciate being theoretically schooled because it like that, and it's kind of getting what you're saying, Keegan. It just opens up possibilities. At the same time, like I was listening, there's this old school hardcore band called No Trend. They have one of their best albums is called Too Many Humans. So it gives you kind of an idea what they're coming from. Those guys probably weren't schooled musicians, but it's just this really like raw, aggro, like in your face kind of music. And so it's like, again, it's just, it's interesting thing about music is it runs across that spectrum. You have some very like, you know, quote unquote educated musicians whose music sounds like it's educated, if you know what I mean. And then you have guys like my big example is always Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix wasn't a schooled musician, but when the Beatles released their Sgt. Pepper's album, he transcribed the entire album in one weekend. That guy didn't know, he wasn't a formally trained musician, but he was so
he didn't know.
ear.
He didn't know anything about theory.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's fast. That's even faster than I could have ever done it.
Yeah.
But
damn.
you still, I mean, I've seen you do live streams where you're like making a cover and it's like you're like making this cover and you're like, okay, this is the keys here. All right, okay, here it is, and then you make the melody. I can't do that. Like I can't. No matter how hard I try to listen to something and recreate it by ear, I can't do it. I've tried and tried. Like I mean, even when it comes to the piano or to the bass, most of the songs on bass, I mean, most of the easy songs on bass, should I say, because there's some very complicated songs that I'm not even close to there yet.
Right.
But I could play Iron Man, and that's like 5 notes, but I can't play some other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just follows the chord progression for the guitar, but when it comes to bass, I'm learning all these. I mean, I've had my bass for like, what's today, the 27th? I've had my bass for 22 days, and I've learned like about 20 songs on the bass.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
So
Nice.
I can't play them great. I mean, I'm still a beginner, but as I'm learning this bass, I'm also learning music theory along with it because I needed it. It's different with the keyboard or with pianos because the piano, you have all your keys are laid out. All the white keys are all.
I feel like I've been mostly ignoring the chat, but I want to open it up just to see what people have been saying.
Okay, yeah.
Because sorry, go on.
Vox and Music said something about making their own scales. Do you mean like microtonal stuff? Like Zen harmonic, I think is the word.
You can also make your own scales in equally tempered tuning.
Well, yeah, you can.
Trying to find. There was one thing that Ordi and Azurium said that resonated with me for sure.
Was it the creativity?
The subject of creativity is the key, not theory.
Yeah, I saw that.
No, that's not what it was. It was I don't even know what parallel fifths are. Is what he said. And I've heard this guy's music before. It sounds amazing. Like, it's just it's like orchestral type shit, very classical sounding. And it's, and this guy says he doesn't even know what parallel fifths are,
There's
I don't
a
know.
lot of musicians out there that don't. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know what that is. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there.
It's when you have fifths going up and down, but they're just staying the same interval between the notes, like a power chord, basically.
Basically, if you saw it demonstrated on a keyboard, it's funny. A lot of these things, to Abstract's point, when you go to music school, everybody that goes to music school has to use a keyboard because it is the most easy instrument to see theoretical relationships. Because everything you do, the way chords are spelled, it's all. When you go to the neck of a guitar, you can play the same scale like 5 different ways. So it's actually translating those concepts. I have a friend of mine. His son's in the Boston hardcore scene, and he's taken bass lessons with me. And I reference everything to. I started showing him on his dad's harmonium. His dad has a harmonium, and it's helping him see all those things. Could you try to understand those relationships on the neck of a guitar? It's very difficult if you don't have a reference because it's just a bunch of lines. You have the frets are going this way and the strings are going this way, and the scales and things lay out like multiple different ways. Keyboard, this just goes left to right. The chromatic keys are black.
You have your chromatic keys and your sharps and flats on the black.
Right.
On the guitar, you don't know what one is unless you know the what string you're on. Unless you know, like if you're on the E string, then you know the next fret.
That's why I'm gonna learn the piano
is
first.
Gonna be gonna be an F, and then if you know that, then you're gonna be okay. If you know that the 12th fret is the same as the open string, and then the 7th, is it the 7th fret on the next string will be that 12th fret on that previous string. It'll be the same exact note. So it's harder to learn, but I think it's more imperative to learn if you're trying to learn something like a guitar, sitar, any stringed instrument. It's more imperative to know these note theories. I think is that what you would call it? Is note theory, Paul?
Yeah, I mean theory. It's theory. Yeah, it's all theory. People talk about like guitar theory and things like that, but that's really more the idea of applying the concept to the instrument. You know what I mean? Like the way that you would build a chord on a keyboard is not exactly how you build that chord on a guitar, but it's got the same notes. But because your guitar, you're using one hand with 4 fingers, whereas on a keyboard you have all 10 fingers. So things like that. Here's a interesting fact. If you look at old keyboards, you'll see that the colors are flipped. The white keys are black and the black keys are white. I don't know when that changed, but if you look at like a harpsichord from like the 1600s, you'll see that the white keys are actually black and the black keys are white. It's kind of a cool thing to see. Yeah. So anyway.
Or you could just buy an MPK Mini.
It is crazy how many sacrosanct things we just don't question that are totally arbitrary, like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I just want to backtrack real quick because I feel like a lot of this comes from it comes from the Stoke sense of narcissism and self-importance that social media has brought to the stage. It's pretty demonstrated fact that overall social media has not had a great impact on society. You can look at the Cambridge Analytica scandals with the election fraud. You can look at the fact that it's been demonstrated that Facebook's algorithm functions on stoking controversy. Like social media is not bringing out the best in people. So that's one thing.
I feel like that. I feel like, sorry to interrupt. I feel like thank you for hinting to the possible new idea I can talk about on these discussion streams is social media and the internet. But I have one thing to say real quick on that. I feel like my opinion of the internet, because I agree with you, all the negatives are horrible, but I feel like there are some positives as well that we take for granted. Like
I was actually yeah. I mean, yes,
but I don't want to get into too much detail there, but I do. Yeah.
To your point, like for instance, there's a website called the IMSLP, the International Music Score Library Project, and me as a music nerd that likes classical music, I can go on this. I pay $2 a month for it. I have literally every score ever published in a database. So if I want to look at some Beethoven sonatas, I have every Beethoven sonata in PDF form. The entire history of like 1,500 years of Western music is available on this database. So I'm not trying to trash it per se. I'm just saying, like, unfortunately, the thing is that everybody is self-important and everybody thinks that, like, we're all living our own movie and all that. So the problem with social media is everybody has an equal voice, so that people
now everyone can see those assholes. Yeah.
Right. But also there again is some reason there's this thing where social media does not bring out the best in people. You look at you look at things like doxing and you look at all these, and again, this is a whole other discussion, obviously, but for some reason people are walking around the internet and places be like, hey, how can I make somebody's day better? They're walking around saying, how can I be the biggest douchebag and just totally fucking bum all these people out and make them feel like total crap? I do not. I made it a rule. I know my music's kind of intense and weird, but that's just me expressing my life experiences, some of which are not all that positive. But I have a rule that if I don't like something, I only focus on things that I actually like. If I don't like something, I just don't talk about it. Yeah. I want to focus on the things that I actually like. And for me, partly when I'm promoting things on Twitter, part of the reason why I want to promote more than Abstract and Keegan and the people that I like it, but I haven't had a chance to investigate. I'm not just going to like blanket retweet things. I think that that's pointless. I like to actually say, hey, this is what I like about the thing, but I'm definitely not going to go and be like, oh, that guy's a total cocksucker and I think he should kill himself. Like,
right.
I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible because it's also shown, like, I watched a Bloomberg documentary on YouTube showing how TikTok is just totally destroying the mental health of kids, and especially girls.
Yeah.
Like it's really doing a number on people. So I think that there's a lot to be said for that. But again, I come back to my original point. If somebody's making music and it's obviously good music, but they're totally self-taught, why is this person so concerned? Right? Why is it like it's so important to them that they have to know how music works? They have to go out of their way and tell you that you're a total asshole because you haven't taken the time to do that. Like, what does that say about that person making that comment? Right? Like, it's just like, you know, I'm all for music education. Obviously, I teach music. That's my main drive. But I'm not therefore, because I'm a music teacher, I'm not going to go and be like, oh, if you don't know music, you're a loser and you should like go away. Yeah. No, I stand by my point that people that have musical ability, regardless of their like schooling, those people are going to naturally come through. Like Abstract, I love what you do as a hip hop producer, and I personally think it's a comment on the state of things that you're not more well known for what you do. We have all of this stupid nonsense. I'm sorry. I think a lot of what goes on in hip hop now is just completely devoid of any creativity. Like you go back even to like the beginnings, like African Bombarda and like and DJ Kool Herc and those guys, like even what they were doing like back in the 70s, like, or even like Grandmaster Flash, like all that old school stuff. And then up into the 90s, like when I was a kid, totally amazing stuff. And I feel like you're doing a lot more like closer to that, but like, but you're someone that like you said, you only have a rudimentary amount of theory, but it doesn't matter because you found your voice and what works for you. And I think that's really how we need to be approaching it. The other thing is like, again, getting back to this guy, and I'm sorry for going off on this tangent, but it's like, if you want people to become motivated to learn music theory, why don't you approach it positively? Why don't you make some videos like, and this is some of the ideas that I'm having, that I'm going to start finding and put down together. Why don't you show why it's cool and how it relates? Like if you're studying classical music and jazz, it's easy because all of that music is theoretically constructed. I can take a Mozart sonata and I can see the theory implied in the score because I can see, he modulated from B flat major to G minor, and I understand why it's relevant. If I'm listening to like some industrial music or like, let's say I'm listening to like porno grind or some totally ridiculous music like that, do I need to know like anything about how theory works? No, it's a bunch of, you know, like right? So yeah, it is. It's an actual thing. It's one of the most horrible styles of music, and it's what it sounds like. It's grindcore that it's really sexually explicit grindcore. If you understand what I'm saying, it's really gross. But
I've seen the Page Fire video about it. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Page Fire is awesome. That guy's awesome. He and so what I think that what like somebody myself who has the training and has an interest in getting people on board, it's kind of like in line what I'm saying. Like you got to find ways to make it relevant. There's tons of people running around now making music that don't know C major from F dominant seventh, and they're still making amazing music. And I want to make one other point: is my opinion, the idea of a music producer has changed because back in the day, the producer was the guy that the musician worked with in the studio. Nowadays, a producer, you can do everything in your DAW and you're a producer. You come up with the melody, you flesh out that melody into a song. You figure out what if you're using VST plugins or whatever, you figure out what the instrumentation and arrangement is going to be, or you play all your instruments yourself, or you work with people. In other words, the idea of a producer now is this totally self-contained thing. And to Abstract's point, like what he was saying before, if you had somebody that knows music theory, knows production, they're probably going to be, and they actually have musical ability, they're going to be a total monster because they're going to be able to just go in there and really do so much. So I think that this idea of a producer, because back in the day, and there's a guy on YouTube that actually made a video about that, how back in the day, somebody would write the song, then you'd have an arranger, then you'd have musicians that would rehearse the song, then you'd have a recording engineer, a tracking engineer, you'd have a mixing engineer, you'd have a mastering engineer, you'd have an overall producer. Nowadays, for those of us that do this, and this is what I think a lot of people don't understand, it's freaking hard.
Right.
I have to write my own music. Then I have to record my own music. So now I have to know about. I have to get a BU meter, and I have to like gain stage, and then I have to apply compression the right way. I have to come up with a mix that doesn't suck. And then if I'm going to be really anal about it, I have to test it in different environments. How is this going to sound in a car stereo? How is it going to sound if and then I have to market my own stuff after that. Mm-hmm. so this idea of a producer is not just somebody that actually takes music. They don't just get a zip file with audio stems, or they're not just sitting in a room with a $3 million like Mackie mixing board and that multicolored producer tape, like, and their faders are all automated. You're the entire creative artist from start to finish. So it's kind of like it's become a completely different thing than what it was.
Yeah,
the whole game has just totally
appreciate
changed
that, Voxen.
Since back in the beginning. And when you say about like my music going back to like more of the 80s 90s roots, kind of, I know it's not the same style whatsoever, but I don't have a style that is like anybody else. I would say I feel like my style is completely my own, and I own it completely, and I've crafted it over 22 years or something.
Right.
I meant more in the sense that you're actually approaching hip hop production as a creative act.
Oh yeah.
When you look at like Jay Dilla is hands down for like name producers. Jay Dilla is my favorite hip hop producer. I listen to him. I'm listening to somebody that could take an MPC and take all of this stuff and just do things with hip hop production that I didn't even think was possible. Or you listen to like Gangstar and you listen to DJ Premier and just those layered things. Or in a more modern sense, JPEG Mafia. Like what JPEG Mafia does with his production is freaking amazing. And I bet that guy couldn't spell an F major scale if you gave him like a set of instructions and staff paper. But he does. He's figured out how to use his tools to just do things with it. So that's what I mean. I'm not saying that I don't think you sound like anybody else. That's one of the things I love about your music. But I think that you have the actual spirit of what it should be, that you're not approaching it like trying to sound like anybody else. You don't sound like anybody else. And that's what I love about your music.
Yeah. So when it comes to, I mean, my music now compared to like when I made Abstract Noise, the first Abstract Noise, I didn't know anything about music theory. I didn't know nothing. But that song, whenever I play that song and the beat just starts, it just like has this classic, like this feel that's like a feel of nostalgia for me. And now when I make an Abstract Noise track, I'm using the same tools that I use, not the same tools per se, because I just find different items around. Like I'll find, something like this, and I'll do that, and then I make that into a hi-hat or something.
Yeah, it's so cool how you sample the sounds and Abstract
Noise. It's all
Noise.
different elements, but I'm using the same formula, I guess, but I'm using more music theory per se than I was on Abstract Noise 1. Which, yeah, I think it helped me. It has helped me now about a year later after I learned like the basics of the keys and all that. It's helped me now, but when I first was learning it, it had me all in this confusion, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why does my music sound like this? And I was getting really down and out about it. And then on top of that, my mixes were just trash at that point, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong for everything? So I had to really delve into both areas, and like you said about a producer nowadays, I had to really, I'm writing my songs and whatever, but that's besides like the making, because I know a lot of times like Dr. Dre, when he did the Chronic 2001 album, he used a lot of samples, and he would hire like violinists and orchestras and piano players and all that, and they would come in and they would play all these parts, and then he puts them together, arranges it, mixes, masters, and gets a rapper on it. That's how producers were back in like the 90s and 2000s. Now it's everything. You gotta know, because I don't know what Dr. Dre knows musically, but I don't know if he knows how to play a piano. I've never seen a video of him playing a piano. So, I mean, when you do hear his beats where he plays the piano, it's like 4 or 5 keys, 1 chord. So I don't even know what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know where the train of thought was where we were originally, but
it's probably my fault.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Lenderman says with modern tools, instruments, personally, that he could see the notes and he don't really have to read them because his like the Ableton push shows what notes are in scale and what aren't.
Yeah, I saw that comment.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with my DAW with Studio One. Like, I could go onto the side of my settings where it says where I go to like when I'm gonna record, I'm gonna record me playing piano or something. I pull in an instrument and then I can switch the key to whatever key I want. It could be G minor, it could be G natural minor, it could be G melodic minor, major, it could be chromatic, it could be whatever. Then I click a little clicker, a little check mark, a little box, and it puts a check mark, and then it highlights the keys that I need to play.
Right.
So yeah, so nowadays people you could play a song as long as you can proficiently play these same keys in the right order and make it sound good to the ear. I mean, you don't really need to know theory in a traditional sense.
And
I would agree with that.
And I feel like I don't know if there's a way to gradually learn music theory as you go along. Is there, would you say?
Yeah, that's what exactly the process that Abstract is pointing out.
Right.
Now, there are some things like reading music is not really a necessity for learning music theory. The notation, that's another thing. If you can look at the history of notation, back in the 14th century, they had a thing called pneumatic notation. And it's funny because all those musicologists and theorists don't even really understand what they're looking at. It's all like speculative, like guesses. Like you're talking about like Gregorian chant, like back at the beginnings of Western music. Even music notation has undergone a gradual evolution. Our standard like five line staff that we have now, that didn't come into being until the mid 1700s. Now it's pretty standard at this point. And there's people now. There's a channel called Tantacruel. He's a British musician. He has this really awesome video on the history of music notation. And there's all these alternate systems of music notation that
actually have been, wait, hang on.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to point out that I see in the chat that I think is and I think sometimes it's a misconception from the other side, and I think a lot of it is the fault of the way that music is taught, is that music theory but in and of itself is not opposed to creativity. And it's kind of like what you were saying, Keegan. It's one of these things that if you do it the right way, it will open up possibilities that you weren't getting at before.
Yes.
It's not a necessity. And again, I want to point that out. Even though I'm someone that is a theory nerd and all that, I don't subscribe to this notion that you need music. And I don't want to have to keep making that disclaimer, so I'm going to say that once and we know that. I'm squarely on that side.
Yeah.
But it's like anything else. If you just paint by numbers and you just use the rules as they're given in the books, the rules are given in the books because it's the most common way that these things were done according to the way the composers did them. But anybody that is really teaching it properly knows that this is just a jumping off point. Mm-hmm. And there you will absorb certain natural laws of how music notes interact in our tuning system, but even then it should still be used as a tool to sharpen your own creative instincts. Ludwig van Beethoven wrote the Ninth Symphony completely deaf. It's considered to be one of the greatest symphonies ever written. he had no external hearing when he wrote it. And part of the reason he was able to pull that stuff out of his imagination was because of his theoretical training. But at the same time, it wasn't his theoretical training that was ultimately guiding his musical instincts. They were kind of like working together. Does that make sense? Like his theory was, the theory was so deeply ingrained that he was able to think in those terms.
I forgot he was deaf. That must have been so sad not to be able to hear your own. He
wrote a letter called the Heiligenstadt Testament or something like that, where he actually contemplated suicide because he was one of the foremost virtuoso pianists of his day, and he was a well-respected composer, virtuoso pianist, conductor, and all that. And his entire career changed because he lost his hearing in his early 20s.
I hope he was able to at least appreciate the artistic beauty of the mathematical equations, I guess. With his
he was, and the world was too, because at the premiere of the Ninth Symphony, he was actually given a standing ovation. They had to turn him around because he couldn't hear the applause. But yeah, it's like really depressing. He was like one of the greatest musicians in the European tradition. He almost killed himself because he went deaf. And so it's not like being theoretically learned is not actually opposed to creativity, but there are people, it's a lot of these same people that want to crap on everyone for not knowing theory. It's like there is a certain group of musicians that are like, oh, these are the laws of music. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, music is a creative act. It's like a painter, right? Somebody can go to art school and they can do color wheels and they can look at the relationship of colors to one another and all those other things. But the end result is to actually become really good at doing your art. And ultimately, it's a creative thing. So you have to look at it like music theory is like a set of intellectual tools that can hone what you're hearing, but you can't rely on them to be creative. And actually, there's a point of past which you kind of have to transcend it. You have when I'm creating music, there are times when I'm doing things more mathematically or whatever. But ultimately, when I sit down to create a piece of music, I'm like usually sequencing a drum beat in a weird time signature, or I'm just goofing off with a set of chords. And then I find something that I like, and then I might use my toolbox to hone that. But I'm not sitting down going like, well, the laws say that I can do these things. No, it's still coming through inspiration, but then you use the tools at your disposal to kind of hone those ideas. So,
I was once.
Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Is that Okay, cool.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I was gonna say this example early. This is an example I came up with out of my ass when I was originally arguing with this guy on Twitter. But I think this analogy. But I think now hearing more about what you guys are saying, I think this analogy still fits, even though I was kind of saying it to try to get a one up. I never actually ended up using it, but this was kind of what was in my head, like how you don't necessarily need to understand physics to learn how to walk. But one thing I only discovered recently is, you train, even, and this is not a perfect example, but because it's all muscle memory and shit, but like you don't learn physics even if you want to be an athlete, but you still train to be an athlete, right? So it's not like no, training or learning anything or preparations. Like, I don't know, I guess I was trying to, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can come up with new ideas with a knowledge in music theory, I guess. Just like learning how, I don't know, learning how to do a backflip, I guess, it's still intuitive, but you had to learn it still, right? I don't know. This is not a perfect example, but
No, that's exactly it. Yeah, there's no, in a jazz musician, right? They'll study, they study chord progressions, and the way that jazz harmony functions is a little different from classical harmony. But when that jazz saxophonist is soloing over those chord changes, they're not thinking about what they're doing. They're reacting to the music as it's unfolding, but their training is sort of there underneath, sort of guiding their intuition. But they're not thinking, I have a C minor chord, now I have a B flat. No, it's not like that. They're just, it's through muscle memory and absorbing the facts that they're actually able to create in a more controlled way. But again, it's not that you have to because I always come back to my point. People with musical ability have musical ability. You're not going to take somebody who has no musical ability and turn them into an actual musician through putting them through 4 years of music school. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They may intellectually understand the concepts and they may be able to hear it, but people with musical ability are going to come through regardless of regardless of their level of schooling. And again, sorry, last thing I want to say, and if there was less elitist superior crap around it, maybe more people who aren't schooled would become interested in gaining that schooling if they didn't feel like we're made to feel bad about it. And which again is the biggest thing that irritates me. Sorry, Abstract, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm done now.
Oh, you're good. I know someone who been playing music pretty much their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they know now because I haven't really talked to him about what he knows theory wise, but before I know that he didn't know anything and he could jump on a piano and play his own pieces that were classical sounding pieces that he just would come up with extemporaneously, not written, not anything, just just play these keys and it just sound like a beautiful piece written by Mozart or something.
Wow.
And he didn't know it, or he just is he's artistically inclined. Kind of like Preem. He's artistically inclined. He makes a lot of music that sounds really good, but I'm not sure if Preem knows music theory or not, but I don't think so.
I think he does. I mean, I don't know if he knows music theory, but I think he kind of I think he might do what you do, but I don't know. Like I heard him talk about one thing that kind of blew my mind, and this is kind of, I mean, this is something I've never done, but maybe I should start doing because I been listening to my songs in different like car stereo systems, and this is the first time I've ever heard that. Oh, wait a second. My kick is not tuned. I never tune my kicks, and for the most part, it sounds fine in almost every device. But there was this one car stereo where it didn't sound good, and I was like, oh. But Preem routinely tunes his kicks, and it's like something I've never considered doing.
I don't ever tune any instrument besides.
Like I've never considered tuning a percussive element, but I guess kicks, there's still like this underlying note there, and to be honest, I wish there wasn't because it annoys me. Hey, speaking of Preem, welcome to the chat, Preem.
Was he here?
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I tune my 808 because a lot of times,
808, yeah.
C3 key, the C3 key will play a different note. So I tune that, and then until I get it to play C3. And then once it plays C3, I check and make sure, and all the notes usually play right. If I can't get it to play right, I'll just scrap that sound and try a different sound because there's so many different 8s.
But hey, I'll be right back. I have to jump off for just 2 seconds. I'll return momentarily.
Yeah, for real, Preem. That's crazy. Did you hear what I said about the tuning kicks? Because you were the first guy. Granted, apart from you, I never really watched anyone else produce music ever, aside from myself. So you were really the first guy I've ever watched produce music. But I've never seen anybody tune a kick. I feel like that's probably more common than I originally thought, but I've never seen anyone do it. And I was like, oh, maybe I should start tuning kicks. Sometimes I would tune kicks, but most of the time it was just like, who cares? And I only ever realized the folly of my ways one time on a certain speaker system.
Yeah, I don't even know how to tune a kick, especially in Studio One, because I've watched Preem do it a group of times on the Loop Lab, but I don't know how
hi-hats? Dude, I didn't even know hi-hats had like any note in them. I thought they're just noise. I mean, I guess they all. I guess they kind of all have like sort of some kind of harmonic to them, but like I didn't know it was. Anyway, what were you gonna say, Alex?
Except for abstract noise, I always tune every sound because I'm making all these sounds up.
Right.
Whatever. So I have to tune everything, otherwise it sounds like crap.
Damn, that's crazy. Boxing, you do the same thing. Goddamn, cool. Yeah, I mean, I usually don't tune percussive elements at all, but there was this one time again when I was listening to it in the speaker, in the car, because we got a new car with a cool speaker system, and the kick, the drone, like the kick let out like this droning bass that was just like not in line with the rest of the bass and melodies in the song. It's just like, ooh, what is that? Oh wait, I'm hearing the bass clearly for the first time, and it does not mesh with the song. It's off key. Cool. I guess that's what I get for never tuning my kicks.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't even know how to tell if a kick is out of tune.
I mean, I guess it might kind of be the like my ear, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know how to tell like what key or what note, I guess, a kick or a snare or any percussive element. Because sometimes I'll even
it was
put the
really in
tuner
that
on
particular speaker system, that particular moment. I heard it, but other than that, I never hear it anywhere else.
Yeah, if I put my tuner plugin on the hi-hat and I push it on C3, no matter how high I turn the hi-hat, like I mean volume wise, how loud I make it, it never picks up anything. So it never picks up a note. So
I'm extremely overdressed. You keep talking. I'm gonna quickly change into something less like take off some layers here. I'll be right back.
Like an abstract noise shirt or something.
Yeah, the abstract noise shirt. I could change into that, but I'd get it all sweaty, so I'm probably not going to do that. All right, I'll be right back.
Anyway, Alex, I think you were going to say something.
No, I was just...
Because you haven't really said much.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but the things he said have been really... the things he've added have been really substantial, so... I overtalk, so, yeah.
You're good. So do I.
I've been there. Trust me. Yeah, so, I mean, honestly, my feelings about this are like, you know, what qualifies as music theory. Because music theory can mean a lot of things. You know, like I said, the class I took in high school is just a very, very narrow sort of like course on, you know, pre-20th century orchestral Western music. But there's like so many other different kinds of music theory. Like India has its own classical traditions with their own theory. You know, and I mean, I think ancient China actually first invented the 12-tone equal temperament system, I think, or something like it. But yeah, I mean, there's like music has like different musics have different theories. You know, what is there to say? You know, like I mean, there are some concepts, you know, about, you know, like rhythm and harmony and stuff like that, melodic contour maybe, that are just like they're good to know just in general. But those are like, to me, those are sort of general purpose things. And like it's good to know about them. But, you know, it's not, they're not rules for what you must make.
I'm back. What I miss?
To your point, Alex,
you missed Alex talking.
What you raise a really good point. So this book, I reviewed this book. It's got like the most pretentious name for a music book ever, The Complete Musician. But it's a really awesome Western theory text. And in that sense, it is complete, because if you go through
I got the gear.
If you study this entire book from start to finish, you would have a really comprehensive toolbox for tonal music. But But to Alex's point, like when you're studying mainline college level music theory, you're studying like primarily like the practices of music as they were developed between like Bach and the end of the 19th century, with a specific focus on the era of like Haydn and Mozart. Like it's very, even within Western music, what is primarily studied is a very narrow part of the entire tradition. Like for myself personally, I've been getting into like Renaissance polyphonic music, like the old school masses and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And this is a hint to Keegan. Some of that stuff is filtering into what I actually did on my last record, and I'm kind of recontextualizing like those stacked vocal lines and stuff. Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything like 16th century music, because I'm putting it into my fractured musical world. But you're not gonna learn anything about that era of music history and music theoretical practice from going through a standard course. You have to actually go seek out that information. Right. So to Alex's point, and this gets back to the kind of thing I remember. I
missed Alex's point, so
it was basically like, like, can we, define what quote unquote music theory is first, to say whether or not, you need it. Because clearly, like, a hip hop producer would not need to know how, Mozart would compose, for orchestra.
I can give a basic definition. Music theory, at its essence, is a study of how notes fit together. If you really want to break it down. So, but then to build on what you're saying, what happens is we say music theory, but then we confuse it with a certain style and practice of doing that very thing. Mm-hmm. And then we say that this is music theory. And to kind of get to your point, Keegan, and Alex, I'm sorry, I feel like I completely interrupted you, so I'll make this point.
No, it's fine.
You asked Vox and Music, like you said something effective, do you know all the music theory? And this gets back to what I was saying before. It's not possible to know everything about that. It really isn't. There's just way too many varied approaches. Like again, to Alex's point, in India, they have Hindustani classical music, which is from North India. They have Carnatic music, which is from South India. There are two completely different systems of musical organization that exist within the same country. Right. And people dedicate themselves to not only studying one area, but they take one instrument. You get a sitar player, they study the sitar for 30-something years. Right. They can't play tabla, they can't vocalize. So it's like, it's such a vast thing. But to his point, there is actually a massive amount of little subdisciplines that fall under the realm of music theory. Again, for myself, I'm getting interested in Renaissance music. A lot of my training, I actually don't really know what I'm even listening to. I can understand it to a degree. I actually got another book called The Art of Counterpoint. This is from 1585 by a guy named Giuseppe Zarlino. He was a prominent Italian music theorist. And the music geek in me, when I found the English translation of this, I was very excited because I wasn't going to learn Italian to read his books. But up until this was printed, it wasn't available. But you have to go to something like this that predates anything this is not something you're going to ever get tested on in a music class. So even within our Western tradition, to say nothing of other traditions, you can actually go through music school and get a degree and not know a whole bunch of things about a whole bunch of things that exist. Right. So,
yeah. For sure. To pretty much anything in life. I mean, you can't know everything about anything. Even when it comes to music production itself, you can't know every single thing there is to know. I know that Preem knows things that I don't know, and probably I know things he don't know. And same with Keegan, or same with anyone. We all have, especially nowadays in these modern times, we learn. And I think it might be the same throughout history. Yeah, you learn what you want to learn as an individual.
Yeah. And to that end, I'm glad to make things a little meta. I'm glad that I have you guys on here because one, I wanted to have this conversation about music theory. I'm to my credit, I tried my best with the question to Vox and Musics, but I'm not an expert, I know jack shit about music theory, and when you reached out to me, Department of Industrial Accidents, or Paul, I should say Paul. Yeah, Paul.
It's much easier.
Yeah. I was thrilled because I knew you just by what you were saying in our Twitter exchanges, I knew you were very educated, and it was really I think it's really cool to have like a nuanced discussion about this issue where I'm not an expert in the field. I only know what I know, and I'm gonna be honest. My original inspiration to make this stream was to stick it to this one asshole on Twitter, but I'm glad that it turned into more than that.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah.
No, but see, that's the thing. Like, we're like all four of us here don't totally see eye to eye on this, and we all have our opinions, but we're willing to respect each other's differences and try to listen to each other. So I think that, like, let's try to set an example for a better internet experience all around. Like, instead of being like, well, fuck you, blah, excuse my language, but it's like everything. Is everyone here familiar with Godwin's law? This is an actual thing. Does anybody know what Godwin's law is? It's any online debate will devolve to a reference to Hitler at some point in time. It's an actual thing. You can look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't used to take long back in the old days. Everybody compared some people to Hitler.
Yeah. So, but I think that this is kind of good, like we're not necessarily agreeing with each other completely, but we're like able to actually have like an intelligent discussion like adults. And kind of like inform each other, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that I wanted to add, and that's one of the things that about me is no matter how much I know, I always feel like there's something new I can learn. That's another thing that drives me in music is like you can never know everything about music, like because if you really like, you can look at instrument building. Like a guitar maker or somebody that builds flutes.
Oh, dude,
there's so
hell
much
yeah.
physics. There's so much physics and like manufacturing that goes into it. Like when you look at a flute or you look at like a clarinet, those holes are not arbitrary. Like where they put the keys, it's all based on acoustical physics in terms of how the overtone series works. Like, and you have it's music is really amazing like that. Like no matter how you slice it, like there's so much to learn.
Non-digital instruments, like it was all crafted like with physical harmonics in mind, because now I'm thinking about like nowadays everything I own that's musical, except for I guess my violin that's like in a state of disrepair, is all hardware that could like none of that has to be like make physical sense for it to sound good,
I want to kind of play off of what Preem said in a second after you finish.
Yeah, I really liked what Preem said. When you think about it, music was being made far before any theories were developed, and it was made purely through emotion. Yeah, I think that's what Paul was talking about earlier in the stream. How music theory came after music.
100%.
And I was in my bass lessons that I'm taking. One of the courses, that's the first thing that he said. I think it was in the beginning, like the first course, like the learning music theory or understanding music theory course was understanding music theory is good, but you always have to remember that music theory is based on the music that was made before it.
Right.
It's not.
And it was always written down by some
theory.
It's written down by somebody else oftentimes a long time ago. One thing I could have said was, you know what? That's cool. I want to be a pioneer of my own music theory.
Do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
go Harry Parch.
As long as it sounds good.
Yes.
As long as it sounds good and doesn't, I mean, because I have heard music where things are out of key, and you could tell even as a non-musician. If you're not a musician, you could tell if something sounds off.
Right.
But I've heard people make music that are not musicians, like Preem's cousin, who's a rapper. He's not a producer, but he made a dope ass beat. I remember Preem showed that like on one of his first loop labs before it was the loop lab, but if you have the ear for music, if you are just a musical or artistic person in general, you can make decent sounding music. But I have heard some bad stuff that maybe then people should.
Yeah, and to the extent I also have
something,
I also have a curious mind, it's always fascinated me what dictates the human ear, why certain notes sound bad to us. I'm sure, like, I think there's like, I know there's like wave irregularities, and we prefer synchronous like sound waves, I guess, when we are, but like I've always wondered, like, why do we care that much,
And that's if you ever want to geek out, if you ever if you ever gain the technical understanding to look into it, one of the funniest things is looking at the debates between, like, you want to talk about musical nerdiness, when you have these like really like academic musicians and they're just like going out like, well, this set of intervals is, and it's like, okay, wow, like it's really funny when you look at people geeking out on it like that. It's
especially when they get all like self-righteous and indignant.
Oh yeah, that's a level of self-righteousness that exists in a few other places.
That's when you pull out your keyboard to make a beat.
It's kind of like the whole genesis conversation. There's something about music education. People, they cannot be emotionless about it. It just gets people really. And I'll admit, back when I was a pissant 19-year-old, like, had my head up my ass, because you do at that age. Like, I also was on my high horse a little bit. I had to get my, like, luckily I had some people that cared enough about me to kind of like knock me down. You always know who really cares about you when they deflate you, but still give you a hug at the end, So,
right.
But it's like, for some reason, this whole thing, it always gets promoted in this way. And for me, it's like, I listen to, like, there's some very disgusting total noise music made by people that don't know what they're doing, but I like the way it sounds. And then there's stuff like the most theoretically advanced like composers that I really like the music. It runs along the spectrum. I can't say for myself that I only listen to music made by, and there was a guy that Abstract was debating. He was saying that they were going back and forth, and the guy said something like Abstract's like, yeah, they're musicians that don't know what they're doing, and I like them. And the guy's like, came back and he's like, you think they sound good? And I'm like, well, what does that mean exactly? Are you implying that like they don't actually sound good and he's an idiot or something like that? Just the way he said it was weird, because I can't think of anyone I know that just listens to music made by musicians that went to music school. Like, it doesn't happen. There's a lot of hardcore punk bands that I like. Do you think that like the guitarist for Black Flag like went to music school before he wrote Nervous Breakdown? Like, no, that didn't happen. Those guys were just kind of getting up on a stage and screaming into a microphone, and over time they got better at what they were doing. Another thing, J.S. Bach, who is one of the greatest composers in the Western European musical tradition, he informed like everybody that came after him. He's considered to be like a musical mathematician. Like, he understood the laws of music theory, and he constructed like musical masterworks. People actually use his music to teach how music functions, but he would never. Any of his music students, he would never teach them music theory until they had at least a year of practical playing under their belt. Because that's the other side of it, is you don't read a music book. You play a music book. You read the concepts. It'd be like if you picked up a math book and you just read how to do quadratic equations without actually doing quadratic equations. Like, it would be a total waste of time. You have to actually apply it to something. And again, that comes back to a point I was making earlier. Part of the reason why this debate is happening is a lot of the music that's made now doesn't have a direct relationship. Like, if you get into classical music and you get into jazz and you get into stuff like that, you're automatically gonna understand why theory is important, because those composers were using that information. But guys nowadays are making amazing music and they have no idea what any of that information is. So I think it would be really cool to figure out a way to make music theory relevant. That's the only way you're going to get people on board. Making them feel like crap because they don't know what they're talking about is just going to make them either like want to hit you or go away. Like, that's going to be the two. That's it. They're either going to want to beat you up or they're going to want to just walk away, or they might feel both at the same time. I think a more interesting thing is how do we look at something like, again, like, let's take like my favorite hip hop producer, Jay Dilla. Could you take the laws of music theory as they're taught in school? Could you create a way of teaching music that's based around what Jay Dilla did in his production, but still teach people about intervals, teach them what a perfect fifth is, what a major third is, etc., and then how to use that information to actually make the music. Like, that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. That's why people study classical music and jazz in the conservatories, because that music was built on these principles. The stuff going on in the popular music realm, there are tons of musicians that teach themselves. RZA, and he's an example. I was reading something about Wu-Tang, and RZA talked about how he taught himself theory. After Wu-Tang had gotten famous and, Enter the 36 Chambers came out and all that, he went and taught himself theory, and he said he felt like it was a beneficial experience. But I'm sure he didn't have the impetus to study music theory at the beginning.
Right.
He wanted to smoke weed and push faders around on his mixing board. That's probably what he wanted to do. So,
minus the details, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, I'm content with where I'm at right now. I want to learn piano, and that will probably be my introduction to music theory. But until then, I'm fine where I'm at, And I
just want to say, Keegan, when that happens, hit me up. If you have any questions about anything that you're learning, definitely feel free to ask me. I'd love to talk about this stuff if you haven't figured it out. So,
fuck yeah. I have gotten that impression for sure.
And I have, like I said, I've taught music. I taught music for a lot of years, primarily private lessons, but I also taught a lot of people music theory, and I know how to do it. So I would love to help you with that if you have any questions. So.
Hell yeah. I mean, I have a, so my mom and my brother know some piano, and they learned through this, like, they both followed the same class, which is Hoffman Academy. And I'm probably going to follow that, but I will by all means ask questions if I have them, for sure. And we can also just, we can talk. Yeah, like if I'll probably start asking questions if I become ambitious and try to do a cover.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'll hit you up. Yeah.
Sweet. Sounds good.
For me, I want to say something, because for me, I think how music theory will help me is not only will it give me new ideas, but I feel like it'll get me more. I feel like it might make me slightly faster when I'm clicking notes in a piano roll, because again, I can't identify notes based on pitch, like what notes are, right? Like what the notes are called, but I can hear them. So I sound it out in my head, and when I find the note, like when I find the note that sounds like the note I want, or a note that I heard, I can recognize it, but I don't know I can't tell you what the note's called, right?
Yeah.
And that same goes for the chord and everything else. The chords and everything else, the key, and
because you can hear it and
I can hear it with my ears.
The way your brain works is you could break that down and you could find it on the keyboard. You could, or
like
whatever
just,
you're doing.
Like I could sense it, but I feel like knowing music theory will not only give me more ideas, but it'll probably make me a lot faster at, like, okay, this is the note, this is the chord I want. I feel like I'd be faster at that, and I also feel like the reason why, I don't know, I would be curious. One question I do have is, I know people say that you don't need to learn music theory to play an instrument, and for some reason that, for me, is a lot more difficult to comprehend, because and maybe I'm not, like, maybe there's like there's probably like another level to me, and I'm not quite there yet. Like, there's probably another level beyond me when it comes to intuitive understanding, but like motor control, like I might take a little. I don't take too long, but I can't play shit. I can't play shit live to save my life. It's very, like, I'm not. I feel like music theory will help. I feel like music theory will help me with that, because I won't be experimenting so much with which notes I want to find. With producing, with producing and doing things that aren't, that isn't live. on anything other than my own voice, it doesn't really matter because I find it eventually, and you're not going to see the awkward process, or you're not going to hear the awkward process of me getting from point A to point B. And so I feel like in that respect, learning music theory would be very helpful for me.
Hey, see you later, Linderman.
Hey, see you later, Linderman.
See ya.
But yeah, so I feel like that would definitely assist me in playing an instrument, because I don't feel like I'm intuitive enough to produce, but not perform live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I have heard people say that I have heard people play. I have, plenty of examples of people who can play instruments flawlessly without a lick of theory, but like, I don't think I'm one of those people. But so I feel like music theory will help me there, but I'm curious to know, because I know there's like an element of like muscle memory there that I don't really have.
So, sorry, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, I think you can perform live, even if it's not you performing your music process live, like making a beat or whatever. But you can take your laptop on stage, plug it into the PA system, have your music go and do your live vocals with the mic. I think you can do that. I think you have that ability.
That is something interesting. It is something interesting. It's like, I guess, in many respects, learning an instrument for me is kind of like, I mean, I take voice lessons, but not necessarily because I'm off key, but because I want to improve my range. But I have a lot more intuitive understanding of how to use my voice to be musical, versus I have no understanding of how to use a piano to be in the same way, right? And I don't know if that has anything to do with music theory or not, or whether it's just building that muscle memory.
That's more of that. Like, when I was a music teacher and I had like 8-year-old kids, I wasn't sitting down and breaking down the structure of the music they were learning. Yeah, they learned how to read. Teaching someone how to play an instrument, especially like a piano, not knowing how to read would be a little difficult. You can do it, but if you teach people how to read, the reason why music notation exists is because it's like reading a book, right? You could invent a new way of writing English, but everybody knows how to read English. G looks a certain way, F looks a certain way. So when you have a musical staff and you have the notes laid out, once you internalize that, then you can just kind of figure it out. But but none of the kids I taught to play, and even some of the adults, it would just put your finger here, put your other finger here at the same time, and do it kind of like that. So yeah, you can teach someone how to play a musical instrument without them ever needing to know any music theory. The other thing I was going to say, Keegan, I'm sorry, let me, I'll say this and then I'll shut up. I think that if you get to that point and you really like learn intervals and things like that with your ear, you're going to instantly understand how it relates.
Right.
Again, when I was watching you reconstruct that piece of music, I was like, he's talking about how he doesn't know anything about music. You just don't realize what you know because you haven't taken the time to learn the vocabulary.
Yeah.
All of those relationships exist in your head lately. I've listened to most of your back catalog at this point. You actually know what's going on. You've listened to a lot of music and that stuff's come through. So it's just a matter of learning the terms. Okay, I'm done.
No,
you remade Abstract Noise and did all the keys without knowing. I don't remember the keys I played on that shit.
Oh yeah, Abstract Noise, yeah.
So I mean, I don't remember what I was gonna say though before.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say I think it's easier, going to that point, easier to teach kids how to do something regardless what it is.
Yeah, their neuroplasticity or something.
Yeah,
they're not brains not fully developed.
Their minds are more open and it's easier to get into them. You could teach a little kid.
I learned Suzuki violin when I was like 2, I think. And then
you know how to play violin still?
I think if I picked up a violin, I would have rudimentary understanding of how to play it, yes, but it's been years.
My issue with the violin is getting the bow to ring out. Getting the bow to ring out is
there's such a process to do. Like you have to rosin it. You have to. It's like it's such a high maintenance instrument. I don't know how I did it, but yeah.
But I mean, it's at that point,
yeah.
Getting a G chord on a guitar to ring out is kind of hard for me. So.
Right, but like the teacher would have tape, would put on tape so I can like memorize where to put my fingers to make certain notes and shit.
Yeah, because it's fretless, so it's
it's fretless. Exactly.
I use tape in a different way, and that was to get the children to sit still long enough for me to show them something.
That's
okay.
fantastic.
Don't move. That's the tough part teaching kids. I would always say the biggest tools at my disposal were sedatives and glue, because that was the only way I could get them to sit down for 5 minutes to actually show them anything. So, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think when it comes back to the whole...
sedatives and glue. Well, if it's a sedative, then might not be able to retain the information, but, maybe like a paralyzing agent. Yeah.
Hey, that sounds
that sounds very
good,
wrong.
Yeah.
So
you're like fully conscious, but you just can't move, right? Yeah, that.
A good Department of Industrial Accidents song.
It might be, yeah. Sedatives and glue, yeah. I might do
True.
Something like that.
Hey, thanks. Hey, that's cool, Buxton. Yeah. But for those of you who are... Sorry, go on.
I think when it comes to knowing any type of theory, you just have to be open to it, really. You have to, because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of tedious stuff. It's a lot of practicing what you're reading in a physical sense, like on an instrument. One of my next bass lessons, I was just looking at these, is reading music, part 1. So that's my next lesson for bass. So, and I kind of know a little bit of these like tabs and like bass tabs and stuff like that. I've learned that a little bit, but so I'm kind of getting into the music theory section of learning bass, because I want to learn guitar, but bass is just more. I feel like I'm more of a bass player than a guitarist. So I love the tone of bass. I like the way that it's easier. It's not. Would you say it's easier to play bass, Paul, over a guitar?
It really varies. I mean, I was playing bass before I was playing guitar, and the thing is, the fact that the standard bass has 4 strings and the strings are thicker, it's really different. I actually started playing guitar because I was teaching music and I needed another instrument, so I grabbed the guitar and I grabbed the Hal Leonard method books, and I was already at a music studio run by a guitarist, so I just went and taught myself of all of it. And even though I played bass for years, those tiny little strings, it's complete, like the way you grab them with your fingers is totally different.
And also the frets are so much closer together.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah. Yes. And also I'm a traditional, I came to bass with traditionally playing, so my right hand I finger picked. So to learn how to use a pick, I was like, you want to talk about being humbled. It's a tiny little triangle of plastic, and I felt like I was learning how to walk again. It was really tough. So I think that they're very different.
A lot of them.
Ah, there you go. Yeah. But I think they're very different instruments. People look at an electric bass and guitar, they see a neck and they see a body and they see the headstock and they think it's the same. But if you actually know, if you have any experience,
that was me for the longest time.
They're very,
so
very different.
with the guitar, I learned enough to be able to write a song. I've learned enough chords. I've learned the scales on the guitar a little bit. But then I bought my bass, and I'm like, you know what? I fucking like this way more. I like it way more because I like the guitar. I like the tone of it. I like the sound. I like that I could throw it in the distortion pedal and get some heavy metal sounds,
Mm-hmm.
but I just love the tone of the bass, and I think that like doing the bass lessons is making it better because I didn't do the like I did some online like videos with Marty Music. I don't know if you ever watched him. Marty Music, he does a lot of like free guitar lessons on YouTube, so that's
Cool. One
but-
thing I will say, so I want to respond to what Vox and Music was saying, because I mean, she mentioned real quick that this is kind of a shameless plug, but I swear it fits into the rest of what we're talking about. But she's working on a remix of one of my songs, "Sing for You." For those of you who aren't aware, we're doing a collaboration in that regard, and she said she remade the notes by hearing it.
Wow.
She also said, I never had the resources to know about music theory until later in my life, like just like last year, and all on my own. A lot of people are unfortunately in the same boat as me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
where I
also
was, too.
resources, yeah.
One of the things that's motivating me to start taking a lot of what's in my head and putting it online for people to access, because
And
I
that,
think
that kind of takes me back to that whole conversation, Paul, when you were saying about that. There's not a lot of anything on YouTube about music theory, like good content. When you look at it, you'll find a video here and there about music theory, and they'll tell you about it. It's like 5, 7, 10-minute video, but there's no good content that's a continuous production of music theory. I mean, I think there's a lane in there for you if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Exactly. It's like, yeah, I see the same thing. I see somebody talking about this concept, that concept.
Yeah.
I'm talking about taking something like this book I went through and producing this entire amount of knowledge into like digestible chunks in a sequential order.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my plan. And I might not totally succeed, but I'm at least going to try, because I still want to actually get Department of Industrial Accidents records out. And like I said, I also want to sleep at some point, because I like sleeping. It's a good thing. I can speak English properly and not get in a car accident. So, but yeah,
it also
that's
kind of
the thing
helps you breathe and
yeah. That's the thing I'm not seeing, to Abstract's point. I've seen a lot of people who are really good teachers, but they're not doing it systematically, and that's the thing. And there's a couple of points I wanted to make, building on what Abstract was saying, is that's the big thing, and that comes back to what I was saying about it before, is it's like, Abstract, you're like, I feel like you're getting more to grips with the theoretical side, learning an instrument, because you're finding something that's relevant to you. If you don't have it's just a bunch of dry facts. Like, who cares that a major chord is built of a major third and a perfect fifth if it doesn't relate to anything? It's just a bunch of numbers and letters. They don't mean anything. Also, I want to say, if Voxa Musics is in the chat, she is a phenomenal EDM producer. She did a really cool interview with Keegan. And if anybody's watching this repeat on whatever, and they've gotten this far and they're listening to me, go check out Vox and Music's music. She should be making $1 million a year and not have to do anything but produce music, in my opinion, because she's awesome.
Second that 100%.
So, I just want to put that out there. I'm not a huge EDM fan, and I found myself bouncing in my chair when I was listening to her newest record.
Oh, that's a huge compliment. Yeah,
she's awesome.
Let me just show you guys how fucking where I need to find.
Actually, everybody in this chat, I think
search
Abstract should be making money off his music and not have to work early job. And I also think Keegan. I think I should too, but that's just because I don't want to have to work a full-time job anymore.
Look at this, 13 monthly listeners on Spotify. What the fuck? That's
we got to do something about that. We got to start.
For sure.
I'm gonna start promoting her stuff on Twitter.
Hell yeah!
Relentlessly. We need to get her blown open. And this might make her feel uncomfortable, because I think she might be a little shy, but it's just that her music's awesome and more people. She's massively talented, and her productions are really clean too. The production is really super clean. The last thing I want to say to Abstract is, when people are looking at production, nobody ever says turn up the treble. They always say turn up the bass. So bass rules all.
I learned, yeah. I mean, no, the bass is awesome.
The glue.
For sure.
You hear a song without a bass line, and it's like, this is stale.
Hey, Alex, what were you gonna say?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, okay.
No, I think that Alex's speakers are repeating
Oh,
what
okay,
Keegan
okay.
says. And
Oh yeah,
that stream.
it's leaked from my open back
Gotcha.
headphones. Sorry.
Right. It's all
No,
good.
no worries. No worries. I always feel like I like to talk over people too much because I'm like have a lot on my mind. So I'm trying to be very careful to not.
I do the same. Honestly, I do the same thing. That's why I could get on I could do a live stream chilling with Abstract and just talk about random shit and like freestyle. I just have so much dumb stuff, like just.
I mean, that's what this is for. That's what this is for.
Yeah.
For anybody who made it this far or is here to rewatch it, like whether in rewatching it or watching it live, it's like I'm sure we probably have a lot of, I don't want to sell us too short. I'm sure we have a lot of interesting and awesome, especially you guys, things to share about music theory, and I hope you walk away with this with a newer and more like a better understanding of what music theory is and when to use it and how you use it. But if you walked into this assuming this was gonna be like an organized class with steps and shit, that's not what this is. But
this is an Abstract and Keegan brain
and Paul and Alex.
And well, Keegan knows what to expect because when he interviewed me last year, I don't even think we got through like 20% of the questions because
yeah, I remember that.
It was that way with Alex too. Yeah, it's fine.
Speaking of interviews, I want to do a shameless plug. Sorry about this.
All good.
I'm gonna be interviewing Topic LKE next Saturday.
Oh, cool.
So I'll have like a thumbnail and everything and all that.
Who is? I remember. I know about. I don't know much about them, but I know that name. Who are they?
He's the person that I got on the Elastic Band song.
Ah, cool. I remember that one, yeah.
So yeah, him and I go back and forth like with GIF battles like all the time online.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Constantly, like we'll go on to like these big accounts like Internet Hall of Fame, and we'll like do a freaking GIF battle through the forever.
Fucking fantastic.
Yeah, but he's been a really cool and really good supporter of mine. So, and he's a really cool person, really good artist. So, I'm gonna. I don't know how I'm gonna organize this one. I want to do it differently than I did with yours and with Robbie Rush's.
I really liked yours with Rob E. Rush. That was really cool. He had a lot to. He had a lot.
Here's another one. I just want to say, Keegan, I think you should promote Rob Rush. I don't feel like he has enough exposure.
Oh, for sure. Maybe
that track "I'm a Eat" that he put out. That I was listening to that for like rotation. He has some amazing stuff, and I feel like he's really underexposed.
Oh, for sure. I feel like
I think a lot of us are nowadays because of how oversaturated the whole. I mean, anyone can open a DistroKid account and put music out, and the streaming services, they're not saying no, this music's not good. You can't put this out. They're letting anything go, and
I think that's a good thing overall, but it does mean that a lot of people are being neglected. But yeah, Robbie Rush, definitely check him out. I'll put him out on I'll play like a few minutes of him here, and I'm opening Spotify right now. Rob E. Rush. Yeah, look at this guy. He's also stylistically, he's like, I love his like one of his bleached eyebrow, the way his other eyebrows like shaved part way. I don't know, it's really cool. He's got a dope style. He has more music than I'm a Eat now. He has Destroy Me and Out of My Head. He's got 3 singles.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely needs to release more music though, because
discography.
I want to hear.
Yeah,
more.
3 singles. Oh, actually, yeah. Well, technically, this is still a single. This is kind of a tangent, but I feel like releases with 2 songs should not be called singles. Just saying.
Yeah.
But I'll play a little bit. I'll play. Sorry. I'm gonna play a little bit of "I'ma Eat" just because it's fire.
Yeah,
and
that's an awesome track. That track is so good.
I
could play it as like background music too. I mean, not that I
don't
feel
think
like
we won't be able to hear it.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I'm the only one who has the privilege of hearing it. I'm sorry.
Well, anybody else that maybe tunes into YouTube, let's just get some exposure going for Rob Rush.
I want to collab with him, but I know he's very picky. So I've been working on. I have something for he's really picky. So it has to be. Are you playing it?
Yeah, I'm playing it. Sorry, it's
okay because I saw you dancing on the
yeah.
Stream, but I have the stream like playing so I can see the chat. So I seen you do this.
Yeah. One thing I also want to mention because I heard this. I know Robbie Rush doesn't. So far, anyway, I don't think he's made any of the beats he's on, but it still meshes perfectly, and I think the way he mixes his vocals in is phenomenal as well. It really sounds like...
He picks really good producers to work with him.
He picks a producer, and then he... From what I remember during our interview, he said he just records his vocals, and then he sends that to a mix engineer that's not the producer. So he outsources like
hey,
yeah, right, Preem? Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, as everyone that knows, because I say it up and down, I'm teaching myself production, and it's getting easier because I mean it's been a while now, but doing everything yourself is really, really labor intensive. It's a lot of work to get one piece of music done.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I find it satisfying. I like the fact that I'm gaining that complete control in 10, but it's like hours and hours of work to get a few minutes of music put out.
Yeah. I'm gonna fucking send. I'm gonna like link "I'ma Eat." I feel like this discussion stream might not be the best time to play it right now, but I'm gonna send the link in.
Yeah, well, let's just get some exposure for him anyway, because I think he's pretty visionary with what he does.
Yeah, for sure. And, it is pretty awesome the amount of monthly listeners he already has, too. Like, look at that. It's like 1,829. That's way more than me, but, let's get it even higher,
I feel like with, I'm going back to what you just said about the production and it's labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but once you get your routine down, technique, I feel like with me, I don't want to sound like I'm saying, oh, I'm so great, because I'm not, but I could typically get in the studio, make a beat, write a song, record it, mix and master it, and be sort of content with the outcome in under 5 hours.
Cool.
So
yeah, and I think with my
then I have to go back to it later to
I kind of function the same way, to be honest. That's kind of how I create music. I mean, I lose track of time when I make a song, but I think it's around that length as well.
Yeah, and I think with my work ethic and the fact that I'm like chipping away at like learning it and stuff, I think I will get there eventually. But right now, it's just I mean, I'm just really starting to get a handle on like how EQing works in the different frequency ranges and dialing in the fundamental of the kick drum and eliminating rolling off frequencies under 35 hertz and all of that technical information and getting a better understanding of gain staging and stuff like that. So it's like
is that like audio engineering?
Yeah, that because again, that's also the thing. The beauty and curse of my brain is I'm totally curious about things, but I have to dig into it and really get into technical side of things. So like out front, I make my workload like super heavy, but then once I get it down, I have a really good working understanding. But yeah.
I'm a curious person. I'm a curious person too, but I've learned to be, I guess, conservative with what I try to take on because of my capacity oftentimes, I guess.
I'm the same too. Like you'll see me push out a verse for like 4 or 5 different artists in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, But a verse to me is one of the easiest things to do. I could write a verse, record it, and mix it and send it to the artist. And I don't even have to mix it most of the time because they're gonna just do their mix.
Right.
So that is one of the easiest parts for me to do. I've been rapping since I was like 12 years old. So I mean, what is that? How old
That's
am
awesome.
I? I'm like almost 40. So
damn.
I could do that. That's like easy to me. But when it comes to what I was gonna say is when I first started using Studio One, to make one song would take me easily 20 hours. Because I didn't know how to use the DAW, and the DAW is the worst instrument to learn, especially when you have a time constraint. It's the hardest instrument to learn. The DAW is the most. Every DAW is different. I mean, they all have the same outcome, but they're all differently made. They have different things. So
God, I'm remembering. Sorry, go on.
Oh, learning a new DAW was just so much for me, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch videos, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna talk to people who use this DAW, which I couldn't find anybody using this DAW in the longest time. Now there's plenty of people out there that do, but learning it was so intensive that, I mean, when I made Killing It, I was like in the middle of trying to learn music theory. I know that's like one of your favorite songs by me, Keegan.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of like trying to learn music theory, and then once I went back to the song like almost a year later before I released it, I was like, oh shit, this song is out of key. There's so much wrong with it. The mix is horrible, so I just scrapped it and I remade the whole beat around the vocals. And
maybe I don't know if I've ever heard. Have I heard the original beat?
No. So I wrote Killing It in 2015 or 16 to a whole different beat that I made on FL Studios that I lost when my computer crashed. Along with that, Lil Joe, that song was written on a different beat. And a few other songs, I can't remember what other songs were on different beats. But when I first started using Studio One, I came and I started using my older songs that I wrote in like 2012 to 2016, 17. And I wanted to just kind of get those out of the way, which I did. Some of them I'm like, damn, this is whack.
For me, FL Studio, like going back to the first thing you said, for me, like, yeah, it is interesting how you referred to the DAW as an instrument. It is an instrument, but I never thought of it as an instrument. And I'm realizing, you know, I always took the same amount of time making a song as I always did, I think, in FL Studio. The only difference was my standards were lower. Right?
Yeah.
But I should also mention right off the bat that I think the longer we go, the more we're going to stray from the topic at hand. So anybody who's coming in now, just scroll back if you want to hear more about music theory. We pretty much covered everything at this point. But if anyone else has anything else, if anyone else, we're basically just shooting the shit now. But if anyone else has any like occasional topics adjacent to music theory, like I enjoy continuing this conversation, so I want to stay on but a little longer. But just for anyone curious and watching currently, just you can go back, you know.
It's interesting what Abstract said, because when I built my digital ecosystem, and it pretty much is, I have a Novation launch key 88, and I'm kind of quickly scrolling. That's my audio PC right there. I'm like 95% digital because I just don't have the space for like, you know, a full on mixing board. Even I have a Scarlett 6i6 audio interface. I have a couple of condenser mics. But one of the things I did is I literally have like 7 DAWs loaded in because I wanted to just buy a bunch of DAWs and put them in there. I got FL Studio, I got Reason, I got Bitwig, I got Ableton Live, and a couple others. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to be producing music at different DAWs, because to Abstract's point, like, they all do the same thing. They all have some kind of mixer. They also have some kind of playlist arranging area. But the way those workflows work is very different. And I find that, like, when I work in Reason versus FL Studio, the way I think musically changes. Because, like, in FL Studio, everything is about the patterns and about the piano roll and about the playlist, and it's very like blocky in a sense. Like, you click a bunch of notes in the piano roll, and then you sequence a bunch of those pattern blocks in the sequencer and do it that way. In Reason, you can set, it's more like Logic, where you can set your cycle record, and I can just like comp a bunch of chords or tap out some beats. But to that, I'm going to be making my next record in Reason, and so I'm going through the main instruction manual for it. It's like 1,500 pages long. Wow. So I'm going through it, like, just to kind of touch all the areas before I start working. Right. But it's crazy how, like, different pieces of software, and I can only imagine what the source code looks like for these things.
God,
like FL Studio. What's that?
I was just gonna say, you're so adventurous. I kind of envy you. I would burn out so quickly if I tried to learn anywhere close to what you challenge yourself with.
What I do is I push myself to the point where I start forgetting how the English language works, and my approach to grammar becomes really creative when I'm speaking. And then I push it a little bit further until I just can't function anymore, and then I take a day or two off and I just reset. That's what I just push myself to a point of total exhaustion, which is probably completely unhealthy. I'm 47, so, like, I think getting sufficient rest at the age I'm at, but I just can't do it any other way. Anything I do, my favorite, one of my biggest musical influences is the saxophonist John Coltrane. And if you know anything about Coltrane, he would literally practice 8 to 14 hours a day. He would, when he was playing with Miles, he would record all of the sets that he played with Miles, and then between sets, he would go downstairs and he would transcribe his solos that he had played on at the sets. He would go home, he would transcribe the piano part. Like, that's kind of like how I got informed about the things that I do. And that's just kind of how I approach things. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to push myself as hard as I can to do it.
I kind of feel like you're one of those learners that is a everything technical type learner. I, on the other hand, I'm a jump in the pool, don't test the temperature type of learner.
See, I've had to get more of that into my workflow, because the problem is, like I said, it's like a blessing and a curse, because I usually end up pretty technically savvy. But the thing is, if I don't check myself, I'll do nothing but deal with the technical side of things. I have to impose a cutoff point. I have an artificial cutoff point of like another week or two. No matter how far I've gotten in the Reason manual, I'm going to sit down and start fleshing out the tracks, because I could spend literally years just looking at the technical side of things and get nothing done. So I've actually had to, more of the way that Abstract thinks, I've had to like kind of develop that, because I get so lost in the technical details that I know a lot of stuff, but I actually get nothing done. So it's kind of like, it's a balancing act.
Of course. Yeah. I definitely feel like I fit more with Abstract's description of my learning style. I jump in despite the temperature.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, is ultimately at the end of the day, like, if I learn Reason backwards and forwards, but I haven't made any music in it, like, what is ultimately the point? So I know,
sure.
I also think better if I can get the big picture, then the details make a little more sense, if that makes sense. Like, I like to have the overview of the whole thing.
I love you.
Then fitting all of the things in. I can kind of jump in once I have the map laid out, I guess, is what I'm saying. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
There's pros and cons to every way of doing things. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm more of a learn one thing, because I don't want to burn myself out, like Keegan said. So I'll learn like Studio One. I'm pretty proficient in making a song from scratch now. I can make a beat, mix master, do vocals, mix master, and then mix and master the whole project. And I'm pretty proficient in it. I don't see myself ever trying to do that in a different DAW, because it's just so much Like to get to the point
I remember you
I'm at
trying
now
to
in
learn.
this DAW.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry to interrupt. I remember you learning like trying to make a beat in BandLab live, so you could play live on stream, and you just hated the entire process. I remember that.
I remember I was like, "Oh yeah, this seems okay," and then like by hour 1, I'm like, "This is stupid." Yeah,
one
now
thing
I
I found
hate
that
BandLab so much.
one thing
That's
I
the
found
one
that's
DAW I'll never
cool
use.
is a lot of some of the DAWs that I collected, their actual onboard instruments have become available as VST plugins, like in FL Studio. So which one is it? I have one of the DAWs I had. It's a little bit more of it's not a major DAW, but I became Traction. I got Traction because it's kind of like Logic. If you know Logic, it has a massive amount of inbuilt software synths. Like Logic Pro, if you've seen it, the software synth manual is almost as big as the main instruction manual because it has just a ton of software synths. And I bought Traction and loaded it, and then I was doing some stuff with FL Studio, and I did the plugin scanner, and every single VST instrument and software synth became available as a plugin in FL Studio. So that was kind of a cool side benefit, because I gained a whole collection of soft synths from getting that DAW. So that was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's cool, Voxen. I didn't realize you. I don't know what LMMS. I don't know if I've ever heard of that one, but yeah, that's cool. You were 15 and 16.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've used a lot of different DAWs. The first DAW I used was something called Hip Hop EJ. I don't know if anybody knows of that, but basically what it is a bunch of samples. This was probably like 2006, 2007. So it's like a bunch of samples. Like there's like drum samples, kicks, just like kick samples. It's all loops. So you would get like your loops, and you would just kind of build a beat out of them. And then I used.
Oh, that's probably Linux.
Yeah, after that I used Acid Pro, or Sony Acid Pro, which that was I think. Paul, don't you know about Acid Pro, right? I think I talked to you about that a little bit. So Acid Pro.
I'm also old enough to remember it.
Yeah, Acid Pro was different in the sense of it wasn't like a modern DAW nowadays. You had like a playlist basically, and you could record your VSTs in there, and you can put your samples by dragging and dropping, but it was different than nowadays DAWs. Like nowadays the DAWs are so much easier to use. But I've used so many different, Cubase, Reason, FL, but I think Studio One is like the one for me. Just love it. It's so much easier for me to use.
That's awesome. I think we should bring trackers back. Myself personally.
I was about to ask if anybody here has used a tracker or has played it, or like.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I don't know why I thought learning a tracker would be a good idea to be the very second DAW for me to learn. But I have a tracker. I have a tracker now. I don't remember which one it was. I don't remember which one it is. Let me check. I think I still have it on my start menu.
Is it OpenMPT?
That might have been it. Actually, I think it's on my old computer, so I don't have it anymore. But because this is a new computer, I'll have to download it again. But yeah, I learned how to design a sound there. That's all I got done. I design. It's cool. Like you could design your own sound waves with by drawing shit. That's pretty cool. But it's a completely different system. And I got into trackers, or I wanted to try experimenting with trackers because I realized a lot of music I enjoyed listening to, especially like old game music from I don't think any of you I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Sploder, but I'm probably I don't know. It was my childhood, but I don't know. It's like this online Flash game engine. It's like this It's a website that runs on Flash, you can make your own little games. There's like game
Oh, I see.
presets and shit. It
You
was
can game
the shit back in the day. It's not active anymore, but there were so many songs
there's
that
a website.
there were
comes up.
Sploder. Yeah, Sploder still exists. It's just dead. As far as I'm aware, the domain is still there, but it's just not active anymore. It's partially because mainly because Flash is dead, which sucks. But the music there was all done with trackers, and that music was part of my fucking childhood. So as soon as I learned that, I was like, holy shit, damn, they learned it with this. It
requires Adobe Flash.
Yeah.
But to your point, Keegan, like I also like I want to get more into it too, because that like chiptune sound and that like Castlevania or Mario like theme music sound, but it's a completely different way of organizing the top-down flow and like
exactly
the way you have to type things in. It's basically like kind of like a musical programming language. You have to use this character to stop the notes, and like it's very different.
So you're kind of coding music instead.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. Like you're using like the keyboard, but it's like not coding like in the sense of like writing like Python or something, but you're definitely using like you use like this character does this thing when you type it in, and everything flows from the top down. So it's
yeah. Like I remember looking up those old Sploder songs I liked to listen to, and I saw the videos where I was like, whoa, what is this magical device? What is this magical program? What is this? It's so cool. Then that was before I was even a musician. And like even used FL Studio. I was like, oh, what's this?
I don't remember. I mean, I don't know anything about a tracker.
Trackers basically, I think, trackers like predate modern DAWs. They were the first DAWs, I think. The first digital DAWs.
Okay, yeah, because I used to record music in a digital tracker, if you will. But it's like a 8-track, and it has the level knobs and everything. A Roland VS880. I'm sure Paul knows about that too.
I used to record music in a handheld Radio Shack tape recorder.
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah, when I was younger, when I used to like when I first started rapping, I had this little tape recorder that had these little tiny cassettes. And I would just
I know the
I would just like
I know what I know the one you're talking.
Like, I would just have like some music playing in the background, like Bone Thugs or Tupac or something.
Dude, I was way too young to use. I was way too young to use those tapes for anything good, but I have those exact tapes you're talking about. I have tape recorders. I was obsessed with recording myself when I was like a little boy, because that's how young I was back when they were a thing. But let me I'll be right back. I think I have them right over somewhere. Hang on.
Yeah, I used to. That was my first DAW, is a tape recorder.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, because I've been doing. I used to rap as a kid. Just like
realizing you guys can't see my webcam, or at least it's gonna be delayed for you because you'll be seeing it on stream. But yeah, it's like this was like my OG tape recorder I played with as a kid, and you know this. Like, I mean, is this the tape you mean? Is this the tape Abstract? Is this like the kind of tape? Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was a kid, I used to want the Talk Boy. That was like what I really, really wanted, but I was
hell yeah.
Get that. Do you know what the Talk Boy is?
No, I don't know.
Made by Sony.
I don't know, because when I was I
played... was it like a variable speed like recorder thing?
It was. You guys ever see Home Alone 2?
Yes.
It was the thing that Kevin uses when he's recording everything.
Oh wait, that one. Yeah. Yeah, the one where he's pretending he's God or some shit.
Like he recorded his uncle. This is Home Alone 2. He recorded his uncle in the shower, and he was singing.
Oh wait, I'm thinking of a different movie. My bad.
Yeah, he used it in the scene where the hotel manager comes into the room and he has that inflatable thing that's like dancing and singing. I'm sure you remember, Paul, Home Alone 2.
No, actually, no.
Or is it the
I
first?
don't.
Yeah, no, it is the second one because he's in New York.
I don't know if I think I saw the second one like one time. And,
Really?
I don't know if they've.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've seen.
yeah.
I've heard of this. I've watched the first Home Alone. I
I'm
didn't realize
sorry.
they made a second one.
Yeah, Home Alone 2 was good. It was Lost in New York. You should watch that. But yeah, he had a talk boy, and that's what he used to record on. It has this microphone that comes up, and it looks like a Walkman kind of. It has a little speaker on the side. But when I was a kid, I wanted one of those so I could record.
That's awesome.
Speaking of technology, I there's something I thought of I wanted to share. So I'm the main resource I'm using for teaching myself the technical side of music production is this website called Mixing with Mike. It started by this guy named Mike White, who's like a 35-year like recording engineer. Like he's mixed and master records for like Bobby Brown. Like this is like major league stuff. And he was going through the history of mixing, and he said back in the day, like in the 1920s, when people started recording, the mixing engineer was the guy that actually placed the microphones in the studio space. Like that's how it started. And I was thinking, can you imagine, like, we complain when we have to like hit spacebar and like undo, like we have to like delete one sample. And that was like, if they didn't get the microphone placement right or the sound pressure levels were too high, that disc that was being recorded to and written on with the stylus was completely trashed.
Right.
It's
yeah.
like, it's crazy, like, to really think about it. Like the amount, how labor intensive that must have been to actually figure out, like, if you have like a band in the space, like where those microphones out there. And I think it'll be a fun exercise for all of us to actually.
Yeah, one of these days, I want to. Yeah, one of these days.
That is how it is, though. Now with bands, like when you're recording a band in a studio, it has to be a perfectly sound engineered room.
One of these days, I want to learn.
Do have to be placed in the right spots for the drums, the guitar, and everything that's happening.
Yeah,
you gotta. Yeah, so it's still kind of like that, but people do it on their own now. There's not a whole team of. Yeah,
but they didn't even have consoles, right? It was like written directly into the wax or so that like that whole.
Wax. You're excuse me. You're talking about wax records.
Yeah, like going back to like the 1920s, like Louis Armstrong and those guys, when it was literally the sound wave was printed right to the shellac or whatever it was.
They're like, all right, you have one take. If you mess up, your contract is.
Yeah, because we have to completely throw that thing away and do the whole thing.
Hi, Dick McGuffin. I want to say Voxen said my daddy had a bunch of floppy disks with music he produced. But unfortunately, they're not usable now because of time. Maybe one day I'll find something of his to share.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, you could get those if you get a floppy disk reader and just
one of these. Yeah, I want to sample some of the crazy shit I was saying. I want to sample some of the crazy shit I was saying into the tape recorder one of these days. But I haven't been able to. I don't know if it's just the tape recorder doesn't work anymore, or I have a lot of tape recorders.
Maybe the batteries are dead.
No, the batteries are dead, but that's besides the point. I have changed the batteries, and the light would turn red, but nothing would come out, and I wonder if it's the tape or if it's just this thing showing its age. It's crazy that I have these two devices next to each other, and it's crazy. Like I don't know. Just placing this old tape recorder next to my iPhone is I don't know. Interesting. But I do want to, one of the things I would, aside from learning a tracker, probably the other thing I want to challenge myself is to, like, create and produce a song through solely analog means. Like, with these kinds of devices, with cassettes and shit,
Yeah.
Because I probably have some of the tools available. I mean, I don't have, like, an old-fashioned like mixing board, but I don't know. I want to see what I can do.
Do you have a double tape deck?
I do not. No,
No.
unfortunately, I basically only have these things. Because at the time, I wasn't really a musician. I wasn't looking at these through the lens of a musician, mostly just a kid having fun. I mean, I always enjoyed recording myself, but
yeah. You could always hit up thrift stores though too. You could find any old technology.
True. I ought to do that.
So I found this big console that was pretty big. That it was a double tape deck, and it had like the whole EQ board on it. And I mean, it was like I can't remember the brand, but it was top of the line 1980s or maybe early 1990s freaking receiver.
Yeah, even
and
I feel
they
like
wanted like $5.
Yeah, I feel like since I feel like even to start things off, like Alex introduced me to this cool VHS filter to make any synthesizer or anything sound more like, I guess, analog and grainy, like a VHS tape.
Oh yeah.
But one thing I thought about to start things off real easy is I could still digitally create a melody and then just hit record and play and have this thing record it through my laptop speakers, and then put that back into the DAW and do that with every single pattern I have, and just see what I can do.
Does it have an input and an output jack?
No, it does. I mean, it has like a jack. It has like a singular jack. I don't know.
So that's probably output. So you could probably use that and get one of them 3.5 millimeter. Is it a 3.5 millimeter jack or a 2.5? Tiny. Well, regardless what size it is, you could get a plug that is that jack to a USB, and then you can.
It's probably a 3.5 millimeter, but I don't know.
Yeah, you can easily transfer that audio to your laptop. I mean, there's so many possibilities with some of these older technology. Even like the floppy disk thing, they have readers that you can put on through USB on your new laptop. And
yeah, I don't know if this particular device is. This particular device might be in a state of disrepair. I don't know if it still works, but I can imagine thrifting and buying some shit. I don't know. It's something to look into. Like, I don't know.
You could also take it apart and see if the soldering is bad and just resolder it.
I'm not that I'm not that savvy when it comes to hardware.
Well, you need to get on it. I need to hear them.
Yeah, we need the world needs it. So I'm going to start tweeting about it, asking for your updates on it, just to.
Yeah, because I'm going to have to start soldering as well, because I want to change my. Then
what we can do is we can all get technically proficient at that side of music, and we can start ragging on people who aren't serious enough to get good at doing.
True.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Musics. Yeah,
the best way.
Fun.
Yeah, puppets. But dude, yeah, the real moral of the story here is become better at music theory, become better at everything, so then we could be those grandstanding assholes. Yeah, that's the
exactly. That's the whole reason to do it, is just so you can sit around being smug and superior to everyone else.
Exactly. I mean, why else would you do anything? Yeah.
That's my end goal.
So if you don't know music theory, then you're not a musician.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I'm gonna have that silkscreen as a T-shirt and make that my first band shirt. DIA. If you don't use music theory, you're a loser.
Yeah.
So
and you know those assholes on Twitter are gonna look at that and think you're serious and be like, hell yeah. That's what I've been trying to tell the kids these days.
That'll actually be half the fun, is just to troll the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Cool. We have our game plan. I'll let you know.
Fuck yeah.
All right,
man. Awesome.
Well, anyway, I think it's getting a little late. And
I
think I'm about to
All right. Thank you
Get
guys
outta
for sticking
here.
around as long as you did. This was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
getting really hungry. That's
I
all.
want to say, everybody, thanks for the conversation, and Alex, I hope you didn't feel like I talked over you. And the same.
Oh
goes
no, I just feel like you had more to say than I did.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But yeah, man. Thanks. I look forward to doing this again at some point. I think this was amazing. I really got on a lot out of what everyone had to contribute.
Yeah, I like these discussion
Also,
streams.
Paul, you're very knowledgeable, and I appreciate that too.
I do as well.
Even if it was just you talking the whole time, it would have been perfect because
All right, you might regret that. You might regret
you're
that.
very knowledgeable, and
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, and when you do have time, we should have maybe a private discussion and see what I can learn maybe from you.
You know what I'll say. If anybody has any questions, hit me up on Twitter, DM me on Discord. Like, I don't want to be like. I want to make myself available as a resource. And
and you said
on your
you said
time,
you owe me one for getting Uncle Funkbeard to unblock you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do it. But again, like, I'm a resource. If anybody has any questions, like, I'm hit me up. Best thing to do is to DM me because I'm with my schedule. It's easier if I can do it like on my time. But definitely, if you have any questions about anything you're learning on that side, definitely feel free to hit me up. I believe that this knowledge should be shared, and everyone should have access to it.
Oh shit! I didn't realize you had strep throat. Oh, that's horrible. Love you. I didn't realize what you had. That's man.
That sucks. So yeah, cool.
That's awesome. All right. Again, thank you guys so much for showing up. I'll see you guys next time we do this thing. I don't know. I enjoy this quite a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow I might do a surprise stream.
Hell yeah.
Myself.
I'll be there.
So maybe a music listening stream.
Cool.
Haven't done that in a while.
Nice.
I'm due for like 10 or 12 copyright claims. So.
One last thing I want to mention, I actually got my start through Abstractius. When I produced my track, Blue Skies, he was the first person to ever play it live. And I actually, I hypnotized everybody.
Yes, you did. You did. Yes, you did. That was crazy. I still remember that. I still remember that experience clearly in my mind.
Yeah. So, that was awesome. So, anyway.
Yeah. I'm so bad at saying goodbye. So, yeah. See you later.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Peace.
Later. Bye.
All right. That was so cool. Fucking phenomenal. I'm going to stick around just a little bit longer on stream to wrap things up. But, yeah. Fucking awesome. I really liked that, that we were able to have that conversation. And at the end of the day, I think it's really cool that we walked away from this with a greater sense of, I guess, camaraderie and shared understanding. And I'm glad that it wasn't just, at the end of the day, something I did to get back at some random person on Twitter. Because at the end of the day, it's not about that person on Twitter. It's not about anybody in particular on Twitter. At least it shouldn't be. It's more just a conversation starter. That's all it really matters at the end of the day. And yeah, we certainly did that for sure. And I think I'm gonna close it out with my song Projicits, and I will see you guys in the next stream, whatever that may be. Peace.
Can we go back to the day when it was crickets? Back to the day nobody knew my name. Can we go back to the day when I was no one? Back when I wore a mask to cover my face. Can we go back to the day when it was crickets? Back to the day nobody knew my name. Can we go back to the day when I was no one? Back when I wore a mask to cover my face. Battling on frozen with the future, might offer another show. Stubborn, but I got a glance at the top of the show. I was never big enough to get a good luck. See all the ways I'm going as far as the show. any sense. I'm not your fucking Mary, you got nothing to say. I think you projecting again. Better stop it before you make a fucking fool of yourself. Yeah, you don't even make any sense. I'm not your fucking Mary, you got nothing to say.